Hello, everybody. I'm Saba Douglas-Hamilton, the chair of the International Selection Committee of the Future for Nature Award. And I'm absolutely delighted today to be interviewing two of our previous winners, Caesar Rahman and Samia Saif from Bangladesh, who have now started to collaborate together, dealing specifically with things like wildlife trafficking. And we want to really explore a little bit more in depth today what has happened to them in their lives, in their conservation careers, but also how collaborating together has really helped move forward their two very different causes. So it's lovely to see you both. I'm in Kenya. You're both in Bangladesh, I assume.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's now been several years since we've all known each other. Samia, I first met in 2013, I believe, when you were doing sterling work, helping save tigers. And Caesar, you were in 2017 doing your amazing work in the Chittagong Hill Tract on the border with Myanmar, looking after reptiles and everything you found in those amazing forests. So just a little introduction, first of all, on our two interviewees today. Basically, I'll start with Caesar. Caesar Shahriar Rahman is a conservation biologist who's based in Dhaka in Bangladesh and is the co-founder and CEO of the Creative Conservation Alliance, a Bangladesh-based organization that is dedicated to the ecological and cultural conservation of Bangladesh's last wild places. He serves as the regional vice chair of South Asia of the IUCN SSC Tortoise and Freshwater Turtle Specialist Group, and has had a lot of his work published in international peer-reviewed journals and popular media outlets. He's also a member of the IUCN SSC Boa and Python Specialist Group and the Viper Specialist Group, and a member of the Global Shapers of the World Economic Forum. He won the Future for Nature Award in 2017, and the next year was the winner of the Whitley Award, and since then has really been moving from strength to strength. Dr. Samia Saif is a highly experienced and international award-winning conservationist with a proven background in project management and strategy development across lots of disciplines, including counter illegal trafficking, climate change, disaster risk reduction, and climate finance. She has a strong analytical brain and problem-solving mindset, which really likes to focus in on the detail. And that is what has been such a great tool in her conservation efforts. When I first met Samia, she was working with tigers in the Sundarbans, but has since then got very involved in countering illegal trafficking of wildlife under quite harsh and dangerous conditions. She's currently working for the Department of Justice in Bangladesh under their Wildlife Protection Activity Project, and needs to spend quite a lot of her time working with frontline law enforcement agencies, prosecutors, the judiciary, communities, and of course, people involved in academia. She is the winner of the prestigious Future for Nature Award and has been going on leaping from strength to strength since then. And we're going to find out all about what she's been doing today. So, Samia, let's start with you. Since we first met in 2013, what do you think have been the biggest changes in your conservation career?
I would say, like, when we met in 2013, I was a student. And I was a very young conservationist. I was struggling to present my agenda to different organizations, to the higher management. And I remember, like, at that time, I was doing PhD and I didn't get permission to do my PhD on tiger poaching because the concept was there is no tiger poaching in the country. But over the last 10 years, now it's more than 10 years, like now it is an accepted fact the government has established a wildlife crime control unit through their new Wildlife Act, and their like the awareness that it is something happening and we need to look after it. That is not the awareness level is not very high, but the concept is there. So it's like the approach and the acceptance of the people towards that it is an issue and we need to do something has changed. And the struggle we used to do 10-15 years ago, like, okay, we need to do something, and that has changed as well. Like when we were going to the higher management, so the way they were receiving it as a fact, that now it's becoming more acceptable, that it's like we are more approachable to the higher management.
It's fascinating to me. I think that's it's such a problem that conservationists face around the world. This this countries being in complete denial about what's going on, and we've seen that often in Africa with certainly with elephant poaching, rhino poaching, and something that's linked to the tiger trade now, which is that there is this new trade in lion bone as an alternative to tiger bone, which is very sinister. But it's exactly that. Once you actually name the problem, then you can start dealing with it, and that's critical. Yeah. And Caesar, your conservation career has also moved in lots of interesting different directions. What's been happening to you since 2017?
Yeah, I think when I got the Future for Nature out in 2017, it was at the time I recently started my NGO called Creative Conservation Alliance, and I needed some seed funding and also some recognition. So I think the funding that I got through Future for Nature, helped me establish the conservation breeding facility of tortoises and turtles in Bangladesh. That was in 2017. So that really helped me launch our flagship program, and also the recognition that we have received through the award will help me to act as a leverage to gain other funding and enable me to continue my work.
What I remember most about you from when I first met you was that wonderful story you told me about observing a hornbill that had got trapped inside a tree and was then fed by its mate for 2 years whilst its body atrophied, and you eventually cut it out of the tree and was so astonished to find that it was still alive, but couldn't move or couldn't fly anymore, and that devotion of its mate. So whenever I think of you almost of being a behavioral researcher, which of course you are. You've been looking at the species that you're protecting in the forest, but now you're really moving into this same area that Samia is doing, which is wildlife trafficking. What is happening in the Chittagong Hill Tract with that? What are the biggest challenges you're facing?
See, when I started my career, I was more as a biologist because I want to spend my time doing research. But when I had experienced all the stories like the hornbills, and I encountered all the stories on the ground, animals are being captured for food and also for the trade, that really moved me. And I basically work on the ground to really prevent hunting and poaching as well. So I think that has been one of our core focus, to really, how do you ensure that we reduce the hunting. So I think what happened, there's been a lot of demand in the global market and also locally for live animal, as well as the body parts for species like pangolins. So I think, and the people who are living, who are dependent on the forest resources, are poor and marginalized, and if they have opportunity to capture those animals and make some money to buy food for their families, they'll do that. So I know that a lot of focus have been on the enforcement aspect of the wildlife trade, but I think we need to also focus more on the people side, and to ensure that at the source level, the bushmeat hunting is managed. I think so. That has been one of my focus, is basically working with the communities and ensure that how we can protect those species to be hunted at the first place.
So you're looking at bushmeat hunting, then you've got use of scales of pangolins for medicine. Are you also dealing with animals being captured for the pet trade?
Yeah, I think it's all overlaps. The people who are, let's say, moving towards to the core forest area, and they're living there, they're doing agriculture practice in that forest. And for example, the wildlife would raid their crops, so they will basically put traps to prevent their crops from raiding. And if they capture an animal, they'll eat it. And also the baby animals, for example, they captured a bear, and the bear has a baby, they'll get the baby and sell that in the illegal pet trade market. And for some species are targeted, for example, pangolin, a lot of those birds which have a demand in internationally. So it overlaps. You cannot really it's not capturing of animal is just a symptom, but if you look deeper, if you see all those encroachment in the forest kind of helping to come to the point for subsistence hunting and retaliation hunting as well. Yeah.
And Samia, would you say that you're maybe because you're dealing with sort of larger species, is that correct to say that you're dealing with more kind of sophisticated criminal elements in this fight?
I would say we're basically trying to capacitate the law enforcement agency. So in Bangladesh, it's a country where we have rich biodiversity, we have different iconic species, but at the same time, Bangladesh is being used as a transit country. So what happened is, in Bangladesh, there is only one unit, wildlife crime control unit, which has only 6 people to manage, to tackle the whole wildlife crime in the country. So that is a big limitation. And unfortunately, the police or the customs, the other law enforcement agency, they have their own agenda, their own priority. So they are not aware about this wildlife crime. Even if they see anything, they don't know that something illegal is happening. So the illegal traders or poachers, they use this opportunity because a legal trade also exists. What we are trying is to capacitate wildlife crime control unit by providing different trainings and trying to building collaboration with other agencies, because the police and the customs, they do have more human resource and more coverage. So it's not possible for those 6 people to cover everything. So we are trying to push raise awareness, and now they are also taking interest because they, for example, customs officers, they didn't know that they can claim they can impose a big number of fine to the illegal importers or exporters. So they are also getting large revenue, more interest in tackling wildlife crime. So we are more into not specifically focusing on any species, but we are focusing on the act we have, trying to mobilize the law enforcement agency against wildlife crime.
When you say you've got 6 people working on wildlife crime in the whole of Bangladesh, what do those people actually do? I mean, what are the jobs that they're being given? What's their mandate? How broad is it?
So it's they are under wildlife crime control unit, which is a very small unit within the forest department. The number one challenge they have, it is not a revenue department. So they have to depend on other projects, external projects or donor funds. What they do is so they do have some hotline numbers. So community people, when they see something, they call them or inform them through Facebook, sometimes with photos or just screenshots from YouTube, because the sensitivity is not there. It's openly, people are selling wildlife in YouTube and Facebook. So community people give that information to the Wildlife Crime Control Unit, and they go and try to raid or take legal action against the people who are selling it.
I mean, that's the most enormous job for only 6 people to be doing. I can imagine that being completely overwhelming. But as you say, you know, starting to phrase these, you know, how you prosecute people, not seeing it only as wildlife crime, but seeing it as, you know, economic crime, for example, can be very successful in opening up entirely new ways that people can be charged in court. And sometimes it makes the judiciary also realize that we're not just talking about tortoises being smuggled or, you know, ivory from another country coming through Bangladesh, but we're talking about something that's actually having quite a major impact economically on Bangladesh. That's certainly something we found worked really well here in Africa, tackling poaching of animals, when people realized that, you know, an elephant wasn't just about its ivory, it was also about the money that it was bringing into the country through tourism. And so, you know, charging people with an economic crime rather than a wildlife trafficking crime. But I'm just, you know, I've been looking at all this sort of the fact that Bangladesh is, you know, home to many endangered species. You've got tigers, you've got elephants, you've got pangolins. But then also this idea that so many species are coming through from other countries, from Thailand, from Sri Lanka, from India, and even South Africa. And that you're seen as this sort of soft country where nobody's looking and able to actually pin down what is happening. But yeah, you seem to be dealing with very different things. I mean, Caesar, how much, because obviously there's a lot of crossover that's going on now between you. We're looking at, you know, there have been reports of turtles and tortoises from Sri Lanka and India being trafficked across the land border for onward dispersal. Tigers are trafficked from tiger farms in Thailand and South Africa into Bangladesh, all of which is allowing sort of the illegal trade to perpetuate. And then you've even had unusual seizures of large African mammals destined for India, like lions and zebras. Were these live or were these dead, these lions and zebras coming through Bangladesh?
Yeah, they were live, and it was in a cargo. There were 9 or 10 zebras came to Bangladesh in the capital. And so the news was like, so they were released from the airport and they were found in a hut near the Indian border. And so like the local villagers, they called the police because they were hearing some unusual noise, and they went there and they found 9 live zebras. So so like it came through the airport, it went all the way to the border, but there was no checking or anything.
Absolutely extraordinary. Caesar, what would you say was the sort of biggest issues that you're dealing with in your area, and also kind of what opportunities are there to counter it?
So basically, I'm focusing, the way we work is we focus on a few landscape. So one of our landscape is in the Chittagong Hill Tracts. So we have been working with like 10, 15 villages. So we don't have a specific species, but we work on the landscape. But there are a few species like turtles and tortoises we use as a kind of an indicator of whether our intervention is working. So one aspect of the program is community support. So what you do, we work with the communities and we hire or employ the formal hunters as parabiologists. And these people become, they do anti-poaching patrolling, and they help monitor the area for hunting and poaching activities. And of course, we provide certain support, livelihood support to the communities to offset the cost for conservation. And another aspect we're working is basically rewilding. So particular species we are working for that is turtles and tortoises. We have a conservation breeding facility that we have 4 critically endangered species like Asian giant tortoise, Arakan forest turtle. So we have been breeding them successfully in the captivity, and we have been reintroducing them in that sites. And the reason they got extirpated from the area is because of hunting, subsistence hunting. And so before releasing that, we working with the communities and ensuring that the people don't hunt those turtles that we're releasing back in the wild. And so far, we had our first release in about 2 years back in 2021. And the results are promising. We have about 70% survival of the first cohort. And the most important fact was we have zero poaching. So which kind of indicates that the communities that are working are kind of not eating those turtles. So that kind of are the evidence that our intervention is working. And of course, hunting is part of their culture, and it's not possible, it's not realistic to go there and tell them like stop eating or hunting everything. So we are choosing specific species which are more realistic, and that's how we go through an agreement with the villagers. We kind of want to focus on few species which are very, very endangered, like pangolin, gibbons, turtles. Those are more realistic species that we can help reduce the hunting pressure and help the species recover.
So just, I mean, a question, one of the sort of the old Africa tricks is to try and turn people who've previously been poachers into conservationists. How much are you doing that? I mean, are you coming across people who've maybe been arrested for poaching and then using their skills and their knowledge of the forest and managing to turn them around to become stewards instead?
Yeah, so those people are not they're not criminals. They are just common people. And if we talk about that particular group of communities, hunting is part of their culture. For example, the woman who going to the stream to fetch water, if she's something a live turtle, she would bring it. So she's not a poacher, but that they collect resources from nature as part of their lifestyle. So I think what we do, and then of course there are a few individuals among that group which go in the forest and capture animals and then try to sell them in the market because they have a demand for it. So we do have a group of parabiologists. We basically hire certain individuals from the communities who show that interest, and then those communities help us. They become the conservation ambassador. They help us doing tracking, monitoring, and also kind of their consistent presence on the ground. It helps behavior change of the communities over time. That's our primary approach.
Do you think that working as a parabiologist is seen as being a prestigious position? And when you talk about them being ambassadors, role models, are they also sort of influencers, genuine influencers in the community?
Yeah, they do. Because a lot of times those people, like when they see, they are going to the cities and they're doing cool things, it kind of attract individuals, other people as well, to become cool. And over time, like when they see these people are years and years and doing the same thing, it really helps them change their behavior as well. They see that value of protecting that because they know that they are getting benefited through those interventions as well. So when they see a value, because that's human nature, they are not criminals. They do capture animal, and often they sell in the market because just to survive, to bring better life for their family. So when they see an alternative, and I think that's how they slowly shifting their practices. But it's a long-term process. Some areas that model works and some areas it doesn't. So we have to acknowledge that limitation as well. But I don't think there is any shortcut. If we focus on enforcement and by force, it's not going to work.
I mean, so much of it comes down to these human relationships, talking to each other, making friends, trusting each other, helping people, developing role models, and then they in turn have that ripple effect. And that's always been a real strength of your project. But Samia, also, I remember, that was something that you were very involved in the Sundarbans, also was this very, community-based work where you were sort of really had the trust of the people that you were working with there. And I just wanted to ask you a question. I probably should have asked this right at the beginning, but what you're doing now is a lot of hard graft, and it can be pretty demoralizing looking at all of these poaching cases and illegal wildlife trafficking and the rest of it. And conservation so often can feel like this constant uphill battle, where you don't necessarily feel like you're winning. But what is it that keeps you going? And what was it really at the beginning that fired up, catalyzed this passion in you? And how are you maintaining it as you move through the decades?
Yeah, definitely it's not every day we are winning, but there are certain times for our own satisfaction, like maybe the little stories. But for example, now recently we had a policy dialogue with high-level policymakers, where they have agreed that these things needs to be addressed. And the Wildlife Act is currently under review within the ministry. So they have promised that they will include all these and give priority on tackling wildlife crime. So we are following up with that. And if something is changed and that is reflected within the Wildlife Act, that is something we should be proud of. Like, okay, we are a step forward towards our goals. So these are the things which keeps motivated us. And there are, like, as I said, there are only 6 people there, but they're also doing amazing work. So they're like 24/7, they are on phone, people are reaching them. And there are some recent big seizures, like 2-3 months ago, there was a consignment of 36 birds, out of which 31 birds were CITES 1 species. So they seized all the birds and imposed a big fine. So things have started to move on. So those are the little stories. So that's what keep us moving.
Yeah, I mean, so often, so as you were saying, Caesar, you're a conservation biologist, you're going into it because you love the animals and you really want to learn more about them and their behavior, and then suddenly you're watching their destruction. And if you don't do something about it, you're literally watching the potential extinction of a species. But what is amazing is how just by these actions of individuals, you as individuals, how you can turn things around. And as you said, Samia, just, the fact that you can start seeing the landscape changing as you're moving forward is certainly very stimulating. It keeps you going, those small wins, as you say. So what I just wanted to ask you now was that, since winning the Future for Nature Award and entering what we call the Future for Nature family, which is this growing body of young conservationists all around the world, how much have you found that sort of communicating with each other, cross-pollination of ideas, and collaboration is changing sort of how you work or how you think, and how successful is that in moving your goals forward? Caesar, let me ask you that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially like to learn from people from all those different places, working in different places of the world, that exchange of knowledge and ideas. And of course, that reunion that we have in every 2-3 years, I think that has been really helpful to exchange knowledge and ideas. And of course, at the end, it's also gives you to have the sense of belonging to that family. And especially, I remember that during the COVID period, we were having really rough time, and then Future for Nature family reaching out and checking on everyone was a nice gesture, and it really makes us feel stronger and motivate us to really go push us and continue our work.
You're both working together in Bangladesh. What are the sort of more unconventional methods perhaps that you're using?
I would say, like, Caesar is working in a very remote area of Bangladesh, where it's like politically and community-wise, it's kind of difficult to access. But that is one of the poaching hotspot as well. So what we did, we collaborated and we arranged a program there. So Caesar facilitated that, like arranging people and like identify who are the potential people. So we conducted awareness program, and also in collaboration, like the policy dialogue we talked about. So Caesar's organization was also part of that, because his organization was talking about subsistence hunting and community people's voice from that region. I was talking more about the logistical issues within the law enforcement agency. So this collaboration, like, it's not like only I am a conservationist, I'm talking about it. It's like different conservationists working on different places on different agenda. We are saying the same thing. So that helps a lot.
Mm. And has it helped you, Caesar, having kind of this sort of heavy guns backup coming from from Samia's area?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we particularly work on the more on the ground level, working at the community level. But I think that enforcement and also getting the buy-in from the policymakers and the politicians are very important. And that's where I think Samia and his team and the project is working on, is basically to really mobilize the top level, the government, the departments, the law enforcement, and also the politicians and the policymakers. I think that's a important gap that Samia is working to fill.
So what do you think between the two of you? What's been your greatest achievement working together, would you say? Caesar, let me ask you, because it's getting to be quite dark there, so we might lose you soon in the forest.
Yeah, I think we have been trying to put up those kind of events together for a while, but it was challenging for a number of reasons, and of course because of the political situation with the upcoming election. And finally, I think Samia was able to put up an event together with one of some high-level politicians and the policymakers in Bangladesh. I think that is quite an achievement. And of course, change takes time, but to have the dialogue in that level is very important, and I believe it's a good milestones that we probably have achieved, and that is they achieved. Yeah.
Samia, with these elections coming up, I was actually going to ask you about that. Obviously, having new regimes coming in has an enormous impact on the general mindset of a country towards conservation. What's your do you have what are your thoughts on that? I mean, what are your fears? How do you think you can mitigate them?
I think the challenge is same, like even like the people we are working, the government people, they do get transferred quite frequently. So I think it's the same thing, that we have to continue raising awareness, talking about the issue and what benefits we should, or our future generation should have, like by preserving the nature and the environment. So that is like a continuous thing we have to work on.
Do you find that there is a growing consciousness and green movement in Bangladesh amongst the young that one senses in many other parts of the world?
I would say yes, because like 10 years ago, it was difficult to get like a volunteer for environmental related work. But now there are more than 1,000 volunteers, and they are creating different clubs, different nature clubs, and they want to part of like a formal organization. And they have like now there are a Bangladesh Biodiversity Conservation Foundation, where they are bringing all the volunteers from across the country, and there are more like about 100,000 volunteers. So it was not in the country before. So now within the young generation, so they have either their full-time student or they have their own job, but they do love nature and they actually want to contribute towards it.
Well, I hope the two of you get out to go and talk to them as much as possible, inspire the next generation, because really it's meeting people like you in the field that can have such an amazing impact and really be a turning point in somebody's life. And on that note, I just wanted to ask you, what is your advice for young conservationists in Bangladesh, but also around the world? What would you like to have heard from somebody, probably as a key bit of advice before you embarked on your conservation career, Caesar?
Yeah, because I think when I started my career, I really didn't understand what I thought, like, I'll be a biologist and studying wildlife and publish paper, and then I'll submit that paper to the government policymakers, and they will, agreeing on the recommendations that I make, and everything will be fine. That's what my initial idea was. And I think one thing that I have learned later, that conservation is not an academic endeavor, but I think in Bangladesh it's largely seen as a, professors, you have to do a PhD, and once you do a PhD, and that's what you do. But just being in the field, I realize it's a lot more than that. It's about working with the people, it's working with the politicians, and I think having that multidisciplinary skills is very important. And I think if someone would have told me earlier, and that probably would have helped me, and I would probably give the same advice. And yeah, it's perfectly fine if someone wants to focus on more on the research side, but I think conservation is not just about being academic. It's a very broad multidisciplinary fields that we have to understand.
I could not agree with you more. We need absolutely all hands on decks, from economists to storytellers to evolutionary biologists, geneticists, politicians, the whole lot. That is the only way, by working together and collaborating, that we are really ever going to make a difference. But Samia, what I wanted to ask you was, with these young Future for Nature winners who've now joined the Future for Nature family, would you have any guidance for them of how they could maybe springboard off this amazing group of people to be much more impactful in what they're doing?
I would say, like, even the new Future for Award winners, they are all heroes. So they are already doing tremendous work in their own field. But now there are more than 30 award winners, and their Future for Nature family is a huge family with lots of expertise around the world. So, and everyone is tremendously supporting in terms of everything. Like, as Caesar mentioned, during COVID, the way each other supported mentally, and also, like, in terms of our own work, whenever we need anything, we do have a WhatsApp group, and it's like there is always someone who has that answer, or at least guide you or put you with the right person who can help you. So reach out to the people with any kind of problem anyone has. It's an amazing group.
I think that's absolutely what it is. This idea that you've all come from these very remote, very isolated places and projects, and coming together and realizing that actually you're not alone, and there is this tremendous strength and support group around you. It is truly an amazing platform, Future for Nature, with conservationists from more than 30 countries working on so many different projects, ready to share ideas. And so, yes, as Samia just said, please do reach out and seek help. And as young conservationists, really there is no greater cause than working for the environment. So I would, in every way, encourage you to, whatever you may do in your life, to have the environment and wildlife species and our beautiful biosphere right up front and central in everything and anything that you do. Well, it's been lovely talking to you both today. Caesar, you do look like you're going to disappear into the gloom of the wonderful forest behind you. The sun has set in Bangladesh. Thank you both so much for taking this time and effort, and thank you even more for everything that you do for conservation.
Thank you, Saba.
Thank you so much, Saba, for your time as well.
My pleasure. Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.